And you said that members of the DNC should sue him for doing this, since David is a member of the party leadership. He is the vice chairman.
I think he's the vice chair.
Yeah, he's vice chair.
Let me be very specific. I think it is abominable that an official of a political party who is being paid or supported by that political party to go out and raise money to defeat members of the same party. I think that's a jackassery of the highest level.
James, can you tell me
if you want to beat Republicans, of which of course lefties never do, they never even run against them. That's one thing. I'm not into beating Democrats. I'm into beating Republicans. And I just will tell you right to your face, I think it's abominable that you have anything to do with the DNC and you're going to go and raise $20 million to beat other Democrats.
And you said,
"Woo, the knives are out." And the DNC is sinking lower and lower and lower. So now we have the Democrat Party literally eating their own. Right now, as you saw in that clip, you've got young versus old. You got the legendary James Carville, who made his claim to fame as the campaign manager for Bill Clinton. Him and George Slopadopoulos ran the 1992 presidential campaign for Bill Clinton. He actually came up with the phrase, "It's the economy, stupid," the phrase that helped beat George W. Bush Sr., George H.W. Bush, in the 1992 presidential election. So they made documentaries about it. Jim Carville is a legend. But you know something? He doesn't have a very successful track record outside of what he did for Bill Clinton. But he's very vocal when it comes to Democrat politics, and he's highly regarded within the party because of his connection to the Clintons. But now you've got young David Hogg. David Hogg was voted vice co-chair. All right, so he's vice chair, but the reason why he's co-vice chair is because himself and a gay man, Malcolm Kenyatta, shared a position. Now, David Hogg, how did he get his claim to fame? He was a student at the high school, Parkland, when the pow pow situation happened with the students. And you know, on YouTube, they zing you for certain words. So I'm saying pow pow, you know what I mean. It was the pow pow incident at Parkland, and he was a student, and he was the one that was out speaking to the news media, and that's even questionable because clips have resurfaced of David Hogg speaking with the media, doing like retakes and kind of scripting out what he was going to say, and rather than just say, "Hey man, this is what happened, I was there," he was doing retakes, and they're like guiding him through it. It was really, really suspect. But that's how he got his claim to fame, and also he's a huge anti-gun person. Now, this young man who's only 25 now, has no children, doesn't have a family, but he's telling people who do have families and do want to protect themselves how bad it is and how they should be taken off the street. So with these left-wing extremist progressive ideologies, another thing he's brought to the table is that he wants to take $20 million and primary all of the old dogs in the Democrat Party. We talking about the Dick Durbins, the Chuck Schumers, the Pelosi's, the Maxine Waters. He wants to primary all of them in deep blue states. Now, this has caused an uproar. As a matter of fact, it's one of the main reasons why Dick Durbin, or should I say alleged main reasons why Dick Durbin, the senator, decided to step down and not re-seeking election. Chuck Schumer, who's at a 17% approval rate, was also asked if he's going to step down because David Hogg was definitely gunning for him. Now, the Democrat Party, not losing who they are, they decided that whenever somebody's not performing or doing what they think they should do, elections don't matter. They're going to remove them. And speaking of elections, let's look exactly, very briefly, because in this video, I'm going to show you evidence of what's going on in the DNC. And if you're a Republican, it's going to make you dance. If you're a Democrat, it's going to make you cry. But let's look at this really quick clip of how we got here within the DNC and exactly what type of voting took place that put David Hogg in his position. Check this out.
As you know, our 3 at-large vice chair positions are used to ensure gender balance among 7 offices: treasurer, secretary, national finance chair, and vice chair for civic engagement and voter participation, and the 3 at-large vice chairs. Our rules specify that when we have a gender non-binary candidate or officer, the non-binary individual is counted as neither male nor female, and the remaining 6 offices must be gender balanced. With the results of the previous 4 elections, our elected officers are currently 2 male and 2 female. In order to be gender balanced, we must elect 1 male, 1 female, and 1 person of any gender. So again, this is what we have to do for this vice chair race. We have to elect 1 male, 1 female, and 1 person of any gender.
Now you see what type of lunacy is going on within that party, where you can't even have an election for your party positions without throwing in this woke crap. So you got to have a woman, a man, and a whatever. I still to this day have no idea what non-binary means. I mean, I've heard of the so-called definitions, but it's impossible to be nothing. But I digress from that. So now let's look at what's going on exactly within the party as far as in the coup taking place. We thought Joe Biden was the last coup. No, the DNC, they are the party of fascism. Everything that they project, they actually are doing. Everything they claim, should I say, of somebody else is doing, they're doing. They are projecting. So they said Trump is a fascist, da, da, da. They're the only ones pulling coups. They're the ones replacing. They're the ones overriding the people's votes, just like they're going to do with this election. He was selected as vice co-chair, but the old guard doesn't like his actions. He's not falling in lock and step. He's not going with the status quo. As a matter of fact, he's dangerous to the party in both ways. One way is that he's going to put up money, 20 million to primary the old dogs. And with the USAID slush funds gone, guess what? You haven't been seeing all these crazy protests. You haven't been seeing the Democrats doing all these mass movements. Funny, huh? Did the people's, affection or impact as far as in their influence with it, did it go away? Or did their ability to pay actors, bad actors, to go out and do stuff dissipate? We both know the answer to that. So let's look at this clip as it goes into what they're doing with David Hogg and just how these freaking Democrat left-wing extremists manipulated their own election to void it and get this man out of there. If you enjoyed this video, do me a solid, hit that like button, because I'll never ask you for a cash app or a super chat, but you hitting that like button, it really helps spread the information around. And if you aren't subscribed to the channel, subscribe. On the Real Politics Podcast, that's what we do. We talk real politics. So once you subscribe, make sure you hit the notification bell and select all. That way, you'll be notified when I upload new videos.
Democratic National Committee is asking for a do-over. The Credentials Committee of the DNC voted tonight to reject the internal party vote that made David Hogg a party vice chair, ruling that the election had not followed proper procedures. This decision, which came after roughly 3 hours of debate and one-time vote, will put the issue before the full body of the DNC. It must decide whether or not to force Hogg and a second vice chair, Malcolm Kenyatta, to run again in another election later this year.
Now, we all know what the game is with that. You mean to tell me that this election that they had earlier this year, nobody realized that the voting, whatever they like to say, was off until after he decides he's going to primary Democrats? See, this is how ignorant the Democrats believe the American people are. They believe we can't see this is another coup. They did it to Bernie Sanders, and most of the Democrat base don't even know. In 2016, Bernie Sanders was asked to step aside so that Hillary could make that run for the top spot. 2020, same thing happened again. Bernie was asked to step aside and they put Joe up. In 2024, they ordered blackouts on Marianne Williams and Dean Phillips, which is why, and RFK. Do you know RFK was blocked from every ballot? There was a media blackout ordered on RFK. That's why he switched to independent and ended up joining the Trump team. He didn't want to do that initially. He was trying to run as a Democrat, but they blocked him. So while the media was only focused on what they did to Trump, most people didn't have any idea of the manipulation that was going on within the Democrat Party. These people are diabolical. And if they'll eat their own, imagine what they'll do to us. Now, David Hogg went on Bill Maher. You know, Bill Maher, it seems like Bill Maher has some sense sometimes, but his little bit of TDS and, well, since he made the visit to Mar-a-Lago, his TDS has been down a lot, as a matter of fact. And he got a chance to see just how quick cancel culture will come for you just by being cordial. But he brought David Hogg on, and he's going to question him about what's going on, about them trying to oust him out as the vice co-chair. Check out what he has to say. And as a matter of fact, what do you think about this? Put a comment. Do you believe the Democrat Party is the real party of fascists? Or do you believe that a political party has the right to redo the elections after the people have spoken, to just step in and say, nah, we don't like what the people said. He's not going to do what we want him to do. Get him out.
Right now, what I think happened last election is younger men, they would rather vote for somebody who, even if they don't completely agree with, they don't feel judged by, than somebody who they do agree with, that they feel like they have to walk on eggshells around constantly because they're going to be judged or ostracized or excommunicated. And what's interesting about this moment is it feels like the two parties in some senses have flipped, where, Republicans used to be the judgmental assholes in many ways. And since many Democrats, despite us, I would say for most of us coming from the right place of wanting to do the right thing, we've created a culture where we say, well, if you say the wrong thing, you're excommunicated. And that's just not how human beings work. Nobody is perfect, but ultimately what we have to do here is figure out how to bring people back in and work towards the bigger goal of advancing the future of this country and helping young people especially get by so that they're able to focus on their lives and, you know, getting with a young woman or something like that instead of how are they going to pay their rent, for example, or how are they working their 2 jobs. Young people should be able to focus on what young people should be focused on, which is how to get laid and how to go and have fun.
David Hogg for president, ladies and gentlemen. Great to see you. We'll see you back here on the.
You see, they brought David Hogg on, and just to show you how ignorant Democrats believe their voters are, David Hogg was supposed to be somebody to bring in the young male vote because the Democrat Party has lost the male vote, especially the white male vote. If I was a white guy, there is no way in the world I could vote for the Democrat Party because everything that they push is anti-white man, from the congressional members to the legislation to the DEI. All of that was nothing more, in my opinion, than reverse racism. That's all it was, in my opinion. But you could feel different, but I think that's what it was. I don't see how any black person can vote for the Democrat Party when you got 60 years of failed policy and lies. It's like Stockholm Syndrome. As a matter of fact, black people voted Republican prior to 1960, and it was the manipulation. When John Kennedy got in, he sold a dream, didn't live long enough to fulfill it, but Lyndon Johnson took over. And in 1964, with that civil rights bill, was the longest filibuster in the history of the government. It was 75 days. And guess who it was? It was the Democrats voting against cloture. They voted against debating the civil rights legislation on the floor. In essence, Democrats refused to vote for the civil rights bill. Republicans voted for it. It passed. But since it was a Democrat president in this left-wing extremist liberal media, they took the win and cloaked it around the entire Democrat Party, which is the party of Jim Crow, slavery, KKK. At that time, when the Civil Rights Bill was passed, there was a gentleman named, not even a gentleman, there was an SOB named Robert Byrd, Democrat senator from West Virginia, who was the exalted cyclops in the KKK. So when people like to say the two parties flipped, that is a lie, because the same people, Joe Biden spoke at Robert Byrd's gave a eulogy at his funeral. And when he was the vice president with Barack Obama. Matter of fact, campaigned with him, holding his hand up in the air at the time, back when Joe Biden was talking about living in a racial jungle when he voted against school busing. But I digress. So the Democrat Party has been doing everything they can to try to rebuild themselves, but they're not rebuilding themselves as centrists. They're rebuilding themselves as left-wing extremists that believe in violence. The communist socialistic mentality ways that you go in, you create unrest, you create chaos, and out of that chaos, you wear the people down to the point where they beg for the government to step in. And at that time, when the people beg for the government to step in, the government feels like they have every right to do everything they want to do. Why do you think they want to take our weapons away? It's not because of the criminals next door to you. It's to protect yourself from your government, from kicking in your door and snatching out your family. And based on the way the Democrats play ball, it is not far-fetched to believe that it's something that they would try with this globalist agenda. Now, Charlie Kirk, after David Hogg went out and spoke on Bill Maher, Charlie Kirk, the conservative, who did a lot of work with Turning Point USA to help President Trump get reelected. And he's at the college campuses, and the conservative movement amongst the young people, 18 to 29 demographic, is off the charts. So listen to what he has to say about the way David Hogg dismissed the needs and the wants of young people. He reduced it down to getting laid and partying. Young people want more than that right now. One thing President Trump has done really good, on top of the many other things, he has made people who never paid attention to policy and politics open their eyes and their ears. I've never, and just from the black community, I'll say, I've never heard more black people talking about policy in my life. And whatever culture you come from, wasn't the same. And even as a collective, no matter what the color or ethnic background, when I was having conversations with people, they were talking about policy unless you were a vote blue, no matter who, brainwashed, extreme liberal, who didn't care about policies. You focus more on people. But the conversation was policy. And the more that that's being done, the better it is. And as President Trump takes a wrecking ball to the swamp and to D.C., if the Democrats even try to rebuild that through policy, we'll be on them, we'll catch them, and we'll vote those suckers out. But check out Charlie Kirk and what he had to say when he was on Jesse Waters' Primetime.
How nihilistic and also how dismissive of all the concerns that young people are feeling right now The Democrats the last couple of years, and Hogg is half right about this, they have lost young people, especially young men. When I go to these college campuses, though, they don't just want to have more degeneracy or debauchery. They're looking for something greater, something higher. They're in the pursuit of something good and true and beautiful. Remember, if you're on a college campus right now, the very young people that we at Turning Point USA are winning over, large in part thanks to President Trump, you suffered under the lies and the deception of COVID, of wearing a mask while you shower, of the 9th booster shot, of the hyper-policing of every pronoun and every syllable that you say. And they want something greater than that, not something darker and something that is rooted in a cynical worldview. And David Hogg is so dismissive of young people that want to have a mission, that want to have meaning, that don't just want to pursue what makes them feel good, but instead young people increasingly want to do good. This is also why we're seeing young people go back to church. According to Axios, a story just a couple days ago, church attendance is going up large in part thanks to young Gen Z men. David Hogg is selling a very dark worldview, and we are going to embrace one that lifts people up and one that is rooted in eternal principle.
See, Hogg is of that. He's 25, so he's of those young men that were becoming an adult under the Biden administration, under the suppression of the First Amendment, of social media suppressing conservative votes. So all he saw was Trump bad and all the Democrats spending propaganda. And based on that, if you're a young person coming up and the social media, they threw the president off, they were suppressing all conservative social media outlets. So all you saw was the Democrat onslaught and the propaganda wore them down. So it demented their mind. Gen Z, on the other hand, is coming up after Elon took over Twitter and made it X, came up as independent media is taking the forefront and the mainstream media is dying. So they see a different perspective. No longer do they just get those clips on the news that's edited and has this opinionated journalism. I don't even call it a journalism, this opinionated reporting behind it. Now they can go to independent media on X, on YouTube, on Twitch, on Rumble, and they can hear real people, boots on the ground, talking with real people, giving real insight and laying out the facts because there's no political motivation or agenda behind it. So kudos to Charlie Kirk and his movement, and kudos to you for even tuning in and watching this and continue to enlighten yourself. You a patriot, and I respect, admire, and I love you as a person, as a brother or a sister under the Most High God, and as an American. So I just wanted to bring you this story. The DNC is eating its own. It's like the snake in the tail, boy. It never stops. But as long as they keep their infighting going, President Trump can keep what he's doing, putting America first and rocking and rolling this America First movement. So if you've watched up to this point, thank you so much. And if you haven't already, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, leave a comment, tell me what you think. Most importantly, you be safe, you stay great. I'm Brian Maxwell saying I look forward to seeing you at the top. Over and out, y'all.